today, Stephen A. Smith on ESPN on First Take with Shannon Sharp was asked the question on, was it more about Patrick Mahomes going back to the Super Bowl or Lamar and the Ravens, unfortunately, falling short? So let's
story. Mahomes going back to the Super Bowl or Lamar Jackson falling short?
I think it's Lamar Jackson falling short. I hate to say it, but I believe that is the case. Mahomes is great. He's phenomenal. He's the greatest ever. We get all of that. They ended up scoring 17 points, even though that doesn't speak to how effective they were when it really counted and what him and Kelsey were doing. But the big story is Lamar Jackson. Ladies and gentlemen, with all due respect, it was a choke job. Let's just call it what it is. What is the definition of a choke job, Shannon and D.O.? It's doing what you always do, what you're accustomed to doing, until the moment arrives, and then you don't. That is the epitome. That is the definition of what we're talking about here.
Well, and there it is, right? This is the narrative once again that even though the Ravens got past the divisional round and they win that home playoff game and Lamar and the Ravens were spectacular, then you are this team that head and shoulders, I think, Sam, we believe the Ravens were the best team on paper, no doubt, playing the Chiefs. Yeah. But we're leaving this game now, and I don't blame people for having this narrative. I'm annoyed by it, but Stephen A. has the right to say it because, once again, the Baltimore Ravens unfortunately let a great opportunity slip away.
Yeah, and it's really, really hard to disagree with the guy right now. I mean, it'll be hard for me to sit here and say it wasn't a choke job. Yeah.
It's usually easy to disagree with.
Very easy. I mean, I make a living pretty much off of making these analysts look stupid, but man, this is not about Patrick Mahomes at all. I mean, the Ravens held him to 2 touchdowns pretty much. He threw one to Kelsey, which was a phenomenal catch by Kelsey.
But my God, where he stood back
Exactly.
for like 10 seconds or whatever. That was Ryan and I watched that together, and it was just like, that was unbelievable.
Yeah, how the hell did that happen? And of course, but to your point, they made some unbelievable plays, and it just felt like on the other side, the Ravens weren't.
Yeah, the Ravens figured it out in the second half. The first half, the game plan was pretty much, let's stop the intermediate stuff because that's what pretty much Mahomes has been doing all year. And Andy Reid just decided to throw a bunch of screens, short stuff, and let the yak stuff work. So in the second half, the Ravens definitely tightened up on that, played a lot more man, had a lot more Kyle Hamilton splash plays, and it was really up to the offense. I mean, we were all waiting for the second half for Lamar Jackson to do what he does best, and the Ravens faltered. Now, I don't think that falls completely on Lamar, though he does shoulder some of the blame, but this is pretty much a choke job by the offensive unit for sure, I'd have to say.
Yep.
And I think we're going to dive into this a little bit more. And again, we can look at this and it's not just it's a team sport, right? But the quarterbacks are going to take a lot of credit and a lot of the blame. And we know that Lamar is going to get that. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes deserves a lot of credit. But the story in that game on that side, Zach, was Steve Spagnuolo and the defense for the Chiefs because they had a tremendous plan in place. Now, granted, though, we have another clip here, Brad. I think it's a good time to talk about it.
Yeah.
The game plan from the Chiefs was tremendous. I don't know if the same can be at least said or felt on the Ravens side. And Rex Ryan did not mince words with how he felt about the Ravens' offensive game plan.
The stupidest game plan I've ever seen. And you know what, Greg Roman, every single person needs to apologize to you because you got blamed for everything about what was wrong in Baltimore. And it wasn't you because this new guy that we praised the hell out of.
Todd Monken.
Yeah, Todd Monken. By the way,
with the new guy.
You don't have Tom Brady. Do you realize your quarterback is Lamar Jackson, not Tom Brady? What in the hell are you doing dropping back 82% of the time? This is the team that led the NFL in rushing attempts. They had 6 whopping rushing attempts to the running backs. So Spags like, I'll put every little dude. Hey, RC, you go play D tackle because they ain't going to run the ball. What the hell are you doing?
So there it is right now. It was no secret, and we'll get more on here on the stats of it. But if you watch the game, the drive that the Ravens scored their first touchdown on, Zach, it was the 4th and 1, Lamar, designed run, big play. Right after that, Gus Edwards, and then obviously Lamar escapes. It's a scramble drill touchdown, but it was 2 plays where the Ravens had big chunk runs, and it felt like, okay, that was it. It was going to get going. And then after that moment, Gus Edwards had 2 carries the rest of the game.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything Rex Ryan talked about. It was a disgusting
game plan going in. You can't just abandon what you have set the tone as, your bread and butter. We talked all week leading into it. The Chiefs were the second worst team in giving up
the run.
Yeah, against the run.
Gus Edwards was running 6 yards a carry?
Yeah. His first one was 15 yards. He went 15 yards his first carry, and then they abandoned it. But I do want to make one thing clear. Yesterday did not in any chance change how I feel about Greg Roman.
1,000%.
No, yeah.
If you think that yesterday proved that Greg Roman wasn't the issue, you did not watch. One, I guess we're throwing out the rest of this year where we saw how the offense evolved and how just different ways that Monken was able to use weapons. And then I get it. We have to overreact after these big games. But he hit the nail on the head in every point until he said we owe Greg Roman an apology.
Yeah, here's what else I'll say to that, Zach, and just kind of piggyback on what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think Dan Orlovsky, a couple of the other guys made really great points, was that for the amount of times they were dropping back, you made third down predictable every single time. Every single time. It was really, and I would love for somebody on the coaching staff, whether it be Harbaugh, Monken, somebody answer the question as to why they only ran the ball 11 times when you were the leading rushing team in the NFL. It made zero sense to me, especially to your point, to where like if there's a weakness in the Chiefs defense, it was the rushing game.
Mm-hmm.
We saw it all the way up leading to our game. Yeah, it just didn't make sense to me. Like, give me a legitimate explanation as to why the rushing game was not there.
Yeah, and the Texans, you look back to the Texans game, the Texans were a very stout run defense, and the Ravens decided, okay, we don't care that they're a good run defense. We're going to still do what we do and establish the run and take, over that way. And then we get to Kansas City, who you're like, you think going in, oh, what a perfect matchup for this Ravens offense. They just can run the ball, do whatever. Exactly. And Gus Edwards gets 3 rushing attempts.
Yeah, and so that was actually going to lead me into this point that, Sam, I want to ask you. Did it felt like, and again, this is, I respect the hell out of the Ravens coaching staff because I do think it's one of the best coaching units in the NFL, period. Yeah. But did it feel like that they were almost trying to outsmart Kansas City by, Zach, you brought up going to your identity, that Kansas City thought that they would run the ball and they were going to do all this. Yeah. And instead, they're like, well, maybe this will catch them by surprise. But the reality was the Chiefs just seemed like they were prepared for whatever the Ravens had. And what clearly it was not running the football, which we expected.
Yeah, I think it's that for sure. And also the Ravens were terrified. Once the Chiefs were up 14 points, when they got the 14, the 2 touchdowns, it was 14-7, but they scored 2 touchdowns. It looked like they were doing it at ease. The Ravens are thinking, okay, we have to match their firepower. We have to keep throwing the ball to keep the score close because we're not sure if the defense can handle it. But once the second half rolled around and it's clear that the defense has solved the problem, I'm thinking, okay, let's go back to the bread and butter, run the ball. I thought Gus Edwards was hurt. I thought that Gus Edwards was injured. I looked at him. I was like, oh, he looks fine. I see Justice Hill for 90% of the snaps in the first half, and I'm paraphrasing. I haven't looked at the stats for sure, but man, it just made no sense. So I think, and this happened in the past, not in this big a stage, but the Ravens got scared. They reacted wrong, and they said, okay, we need to throw the football. We're going to use Lamar Jackson that way, and it was a huge mistake that cost him a Super Bowl.
Yeah. And I agree. And you know what? And this is for the first part of it. He's going to make some appearances, but he's going to be on for the rest of our show after Sam has to hop off. But we got Kevin Ostreicher just lurking behind in the scenes here.
Oyster sucker.
But it's a great time, Kevin, to bring you back on here because I know you have the rushing stats here to back up what we were just talking about.
Yeah, I do. I'm here, and it's tough because you look at what happened yesterday, guys, and in the Lamar Jackson era, this is a run-first football team. The Ravens, in the Lamar Jackson era, there has never been a game below 16 carries. They haven't gone below 16 carries in a game 2017. That's over 6 years ago. That was the last time the Ravens had less than 16 carries in a game. This is only the third time in the Lamar Jackson era that there were 16 carries in a game. And the two other times, the first one was before Lamar took over, Joe Flacco in 2018. And the second time he was injured. So this is the first time Lamar was the starter in a game where they had 16 carries. And it's just so disheartening because the Kansas City defensive line they were also beat up. They had no Derek Nottie in this game. Chris Jones was beat up for the majority of this game. And we saw with the sample, it was a very small sample size, right? 6 total running back carries. We saw that they were getting some chunks on there. Now, Justice Hill had 3 for 3, but after that 15-yard run by Gus Edwards, we really never saw something like that again. And I think that you talk about a team beating themselves. Well, the Ravens certainly took themselves out of the run game situation where if you're a defense, you want to make a team one-dimensional. You want to take a part of their defense or a part of their offense away. The Ravens took a part of their offense away themselves. And that, to me, is just where it made no sense.